I saw Rampage, although you already know that based on the video title, but when I say I saw Rampage, I'm not saying that with glee. I'm saying it the same way you'd say it if you went to pick up your Taco Bell order and they got it just sorta right. The burritos weren't very full, but that's to be expected sometimes. Anything less would be horrible, and anything beyond just your order exactly as you got it would be about as miraculous as a flat earther with an IQ above 50. So when I say I saw Rampage, all I'm really saying is I saw a movie that had some cool parts, but also made me feel a similar rage for how I feel whenever someone types sad with an exclamation point. Seriously, stop doing that if you aren't being ironic. So yeah, Rampage. Big monsters, big Dwayne Johnson, big buildings, big ambition, big disaster in more ways than one. Other than Dwayne Johnson, the movie also quote-unquote stars Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Naomi Harris, and Joe Manganiello. I'm not going to even bother to attempt to say his name properly. Maybe I will if DC ever makes that Batman vs. Deathstroke movie that's been in the works for like 3 years, which, let's be honest though, that's just not gonna happen at any time in the future. That's not gonna happen anytime soon. Rampage has a very simple plot. That plot being Dwayne Johnson is friends with a gorilla, and then that gorilla gets big because of some special science canisters. Also, a wolf gets big, and then a crocodile grows and becomes the size of a dinosaur with tusks and spikes to boot. And that's about it. Now, when I saw Rampage, it had a lot of problems, which I'll get into in a little bit, but one I didn't consider to really be a major problem was the plot. It was so vapid and bland that I just never thought about it very much. Then I found out what Rampage was based on. None of what I'm about to say affected my final judgment on the film. I just figured it's worth mentioning, especially if you like the source material for Rampage, which was a video game. For those that didn't play the game or were unaware Rampage even was a video game movie, don't feel bad. It's completely different compared to the movie. They didn't even market it in connection to the video game outside of a webpage where you can play the original Rampage online now. The only real similarity between the two was the citywide destruction. The game has humans become giant monsters instead of normal animals being affected by the virus or whatever you want to call it that made them into giants in the movie. There were also a lot of differences between the monsters from the game and the monsters in the movie itself. George, the, I guess, secondary protagonist of this film, is the most like his in-game counterpart, with the exception of his hair. Ralph, on the other hand, is just a really fucked up wolf instead of a giant werewolf. And Lizzie, which was intended to be a Godzilla spoof in the game, instead became somebody's rejected Jurassic Park dinosaur in the movie. It seems like a waste to throw all that away, but you know, movies don't have to follow the source material strictly. It just struck me odd they chucked the source material into the trash and then proceeded to incinerate it and bury the ashes. Then again, it wouldn't be the first time somebody shat over an entire established canon that's been the norm for the last 38 years. But I mean, come on, who really gives a shit about? Anyway, the plot was nothing really of substance and was fairly unremarkable as a whole. Rampage knew that though. The movie doesn't really try to be anything more than a disaster flick, which in some ways is a saving grace. Disaster films often get caught up in explaining what the shit is happening instead of just giving us some fun action and explosions. Rampage does do a bit of explaining, but for the most part it's just Dwayne Johnsoning and giant monsters destroying a city and killing people. It focuses on the fun and less so on the things that make a movie good or steaming pile of shit that should never have existed in the first place. Fuck! The only good things about this movie was its pacing, CGI, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. God, this movie was a shit show. It's the type of fun I imagine you'd get while watching a circus, only to notice one clown keeps staring at you for an obscene amount of time. And then as you're unlocking your front door when you get home, you see the clown inside your house smiling at you. Sure, it was fun at first, and yeah, maybe your adrenaline is pumping, but also you really just wanted to stop and go away. Luckily, with Rampage, it does! But yeah, the CGI. The main-ish character in this Curious George spinoff of literally epic proportions was done using motion capture, which if you saw my Ready Player One video last week or my Black Panther video, you'd know is something I really like a lot. It shows an actor's skill more so than usual, it requires subtle facial cues, and for the actor to be fully devoted to giving a 100% authentic portrayal of the role. In Rampage, George, the only one with mocap, was played by a guy named Jason Lyles, and he did a phenomenal job to the point I half expected Andy Serkis' name to be in the credits. I was thoroughly impressed. If you ignore how much of a fucking mess it became in the last 30 minutes and the first 7 minutes and like most of the film as a whole. It's fun to watch, has a simple enough plot that it doesn't frustrate you, but it doesn't engage you either. Everybody could act fairly well. literally everything else. The plot was far too simple that if something wasn't constantly happening, it felt like the movie had been put in slow mode. The entire cast was grossly underutilized. This thing had more plot holes than a slice of Swiss cheese, and the first 7 minutes are about as relevant as if instead of the opening scene, it was a commercial for ass cocaine. The crack for your crack. What a goddamn travesty. Rampage is fun. It's also pretty bad if you want anything more than a mediocre movie with smashing stuff and some trademark Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson one-liners. If you just want to see a fun movie and Isle of Dogs, Ready Player One, A Quiet Place, Pacific Rim, or rewatching Black Panther doesn't interest you, then sure, by all means go see Rampage. Just make sure to keep your expectations low. It's a 6, the CGI really blew me away, and the fact it wasn't incredibly boring to watch was, that was a plus. But if I'm being honest, the butt cocaine sounds much better. This video was completely different than my usual format, so I'd love to hear what you guys thought of it being more of a full talk video and less of a segmentation video and reviewing individual parts of the movie. Feedback is very important, and thank you everybody for watching. It means a lot, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and comment what movies or types of subjects you'd like to see me talk about next. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to turn on notifications, since YouTube's notification system is a goddamn mess right now. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. If you'd like to have your art featured in a video, draw me or one of my wondrous characters, such as the majestic Chad the Sad, and tweet it to @TahukanTV on Twitter. Huge thank you to Patreon supporters Anonymous and Matt Porter. I really appreciate it.